The humid August morning in New Orleans brought an unexpected crowd to the Garden District estate auction. Among the curious buyers browsing through generations of accumulated treasures, antique dealer Marcus Thompson moved with practiced efficiency. His trained eye quickly separated valuable pieces from mere clutter as he navigated through the sprawling Greek Revival mansion. The Beaumont family had lived in this house since 1845, before the last descendant, elderly Claire Beaumont, passed away without heirs. Now strangers rifled through their personal belongings, each item tagged with a price that reduced centuries of secrets to mere dollars and cents. In the mansion's parlor, Marcus discovered a collection of framed daguerreotypes arranged on an ornate writing desk. Most were typical portraits from the antebellum era, stern-faced patriarchs, ladies in their finest dresses, children posed with practiced stillness. But one particular frame stopped him cold. The daguerreotype, clearly from the 1850s, based on the photographic technique and clothing, showed something extraordinary for its time. A well-dressed white woman sat in an elegant chair, her dark hair carefully arranged, wearing a silk dress that spoke of considerable wealth. Beside her stood a black man in a fine suit, his hand resting protectively on the back of a chair. Between them, cradled in the woman's arms, was an infant of clearly mixed race. What made this portrait revolutionary was the couple's positioning. They weren't posed as mistress and servant, as would have been expected in 1850s Louisiana. They were posed as equals, as partners, as a family. Marcus's heart raced. He knew what he was looking at. Evidence of an interracial relationship in the antebellum South, one of the most dangerous and forbidden loves possible in that era. He purchased the daguerreotype for $300, unable to shake the feeling that this image held secrets that demanded to be uncovered. Back in his shop in the French Quarter, Marcus carefully examined the daguerreotype's case. Inside the velvet lining, he found what he'd hoped for: a small brass plate engraved with names and a date: Isabel, Samuel, and baby Grace Beaumont Freeman, August 12th, 1853. The hyphenated surname itself was shocking. In 1853 Louisiana, interracial marriage was illegal. Yet here was evidence that this couple had claimed each other's names, creating a family identity that defied the laws of their time. Marcus spent the next week diving into historical records. What he discovered painted a complex picture of love, courage, and ultimately tragedy that would span more than a century. Isabel Beaumont had been born in 1828 to one of New Orleans's wealthiest French Creole families. Her father, Philippe Beaumont, owned a successful import business and several properties throughout the city. Samuel Freeman had been born into slavery on a plantation outside Baton Rouge in 1825, but had been freed at age 18 by his enslaver's will, a rare occurrence that granted him something even more rare: freedom papers and a small inheritance. By 1850, Samuel had established himself as a skilled carpenter in New Orleans's free black community, building a reputation for exceptional craftsmanship among the city's elite. That's how he met Isabel, hired to create custom furniture for the Beaumont mansion in 1851. According to a journal Marcus found in the Louisiana Historical Society archives, Isabel's cousin had written about the scandal. Isabel has lost all reason. She speaks of the Freeman carpenter as if he were her equal, praising his intelligence and character. Father is furious and has forbidden her from being present during the work, but I fear the damage is already done. The relationship that developed between Isabel and Samuel was not just forbidden, it was dangerous. Louisiana's laws against concubinage between races carried severe penalties. For Samuel, the consequences could be even more dire: loss of his freedom papers, imprisonment, or worse. Yet they pursued their love anyway. Marcus found letters between them, carefully preserved in a safe deposit box that had been opened after Claire Beaumont's death. The correspondence revealed a profound connection that transcended the brutal realities of their time. My dearest Samuel, one letter from 1852 read, "I know the world calls our love impossible, even criminal. But how can love be a crime? You have shown me that a person's worth has nothing to do with the color of their skin and everything to do with the content of their character. I would rather face society's scorn beside you than live in comfort with a lie." Samuel's response was equally moving. "Isabel, you ask me to accept the danger we face together, but you must understand what you risk. I risk my freedom, yes, but you risk everything: your family, your position, your safety. Yet when I think of a life without you, I find I am willing to be selfish enough to let you make this choice." By early 1853, Isabel was pregnant. The couple faced an impossible situation. They couldn't marry legally. Any child born to them would face a lifetime of discrimination and danger. Isabel's family would surely disown her if they discovered the truth. This is when Marcus's research took a darker turn. He found a curious gap in the Beaumont family's documented history. After August 1853, the date of the daguerreotype, Isabel Beaumont's name disappeared from New Orleans society pages. No more mentions of charity events, no wedding announcements, nothing. Marcus contacted Dr. Jennifer Washington, a historian at Tulane University who specialized in free black communities in antebellum Louisiana. When he showed her the daguerreotype, her eyes widened. "Do you know what you have here?" Dr. Washington asked, her voice filled with excitement and sadness. "This is one of maybe a dozen known photographs of an acknowledged interracial family from the 1850s South. Most such relationships were hidden, denied, or documented as something else entirely. This couple was making a statement. She examined the positioning more carefully. Look at how they're posed. Samuel isn't standing behind or to the side like a servant. He's beside her, his hand on her chair in the traditional protective pose of a husband, and look at their expressions." Marcus leaned in closer. Neither Isabel nor Samuel were smiling. Daguerreotypes of the era rarely showed smiles due to long exposure times, but their eyes held something powerful: determination, defiance, but also something else: fear. "The baby," Dr. Washington continued, pointing to infant Grace. "Look at how tightly Isabel is holding her. And notice the quality of the christening gown. This is expensive fabric, suggesting this photograph was commissioned for a specific purpose." "What purpose?" Marcus asked. "Evidence," Dr. Washington said quietly. "I think they knew they were in danger and wanted proof that they existed as a family." With Dr. Washington's help, Marcus continued excavating the story. They discovered that Isabel's father, Philippe Beaumont, had indeed discovered his daughter's relationship and pregnancy. His response, documented in family letters, was volcanic. A letter from Philippe to his business partner in August 1853 revealed his rage. "My daughter has disgraced our family beyond redemption. She refuses to name the father of her child, but I have made inquiries. When I discovered the truth, I was prepared to have the free man arrested on false charges. But Isabel threatened to testify publicly about their relationship, which would bring even greater scandal upon our name. Felipe's solution was coldly calculated. He would allow Isabel to have her child, but then she would be sent to France, and the child would be given to a Catholic orphanage. Samuel would be paid handsomely to leave New Orleans and never return. If either refused, Philippe would use his considerable influence to have Samuel's freedom papers declared fraudulent. But Isabel and Samuel had their own plan. The daguerreotype was part of it. Marcus found the next piece of the puzzle in the archives of a small black church in Tremé, one of New Orleans' historic African-American neighborhoods. Hidden in century-old records was a marriage certificate dated August 10th, 1853, 2 days before the daguerreotype. The marriage had been performed by a free black minister who was part of a secret network that helped interracial couples. While not legally recognized by Louisiana law, it was recognized by their community and, more importantly, by their consciences. The daguerreotype, Marcus realized, was their wedding portrait. It was their declaration that regardless of what the law said, they were a family. But the story took a tragic turn that Marcus wasn't prepared for. In the records of the St. Louis Cemetery No. 2, he found 3 burial plots purchased in September 1853. The names on the death certificates stopped him cold. Isabel Beaumont, age 25, Samuel Freeman, age 28, Grace Beaumont Freeman, age 6 weeks. All 3 had died on September 3rd, 1853, just 3 weeks after the daguerreotype was taken. The causes of death were listed as yellow fever, which wasn't unusual during New Orleans' frequent epidemics. But Dr. Washington's expression when Marcus showed her the records suggested she saw something else. 3 people in the same family, all dying on the same day from yellow fever? She said skeptically. Yellow fever kills quickly, yes, but not usually everyone simultaneously. And look at this. She pointed to another detail on the death certificate. The reporting physician was Dr. Henri Beaumont, Isabel's uncle. The implications were chilling. Had Philippe Beaumont arranged his daughter's death rather than allow her interracial family to exist? The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. Marcus found one more crucial document, a letter from Samuel to a fellow freeman, dated August 30th, 1853, just 4 days before his death. My friend, if you are reading this, then the worst has occurred. Isabel's father has made threats that I can no longer dismiss. He has demanded we separate, but we have refused. I fear he will use his influence to have me arrested or worse. I fear for Isabel and Grace as well. We have decided that if we cannot live together in this country, we will attempt to leave for Mexico, where mixed families face less persecution. I am entrusting this letter and our daguerreotype to you. If anything happens to us, please ensure our story survives. Let people know that we loved each other, that our love was real and worthy, regardless of what the law claimed. The letter had been preserved by the Friends' descendants for over 160 years, eventually donated to the Historical Society. Marcus felt a responsibility to tell their complete story. He organized an exhibition at the New Orleans African American Museum titled Forbidden Love, the Beaumont Freeman Family, and the Price of Defiance in 1853. The daguerreotype was displayed alongside all the documents Marcus had uncovered. The letters, the marriage certificate, the suspicious death records. The exhibition drew national attention, with descendants of both free black communities and white Creole families coming to bear witness to this hidden history. At the exhibition's opening, Dr. Washington addressed the crowd. What we see in this daguerreotype is revolutionary, not just because it shows an interracial family in 1853, but because it shows them choosing each other despite knowing the cost Isabel Beaumont gave up her family's wealth and social position. Samuel Freeman risked his hard-won freedom, and together they created a family that the laws of their time said couldn't exist. She paused, looking at the enlarged image behind her. Their story likely ended in tragedy, possibly even murder disguised as disease. But this photograph survived. Their love survived. And that survival is its own form of resistance. Among the attendees was an elderly woman named Marie Freeman Baptiste, who approached Marcus after the presentation. With tears in her eyes, she explained that she was Samuel Freeman's great-great-great-niece, descended from his brother. "We always knew there was a story about Samuel and a white woman," she said quietly. But the details were lost over generations, deliberately hidden because it was too dangerous to speak about even years later. My grandmother would only say that Samuel loved bravely and died young. Now, finally, I understand what she meant. Marie handed Marcus a small locket that had been passed down through her family. Inside was a tiny painted miniature of a man who was unmistakably Samuel Freeman, and a lock of hair tied with a silk ribbon. "This was found in Samuel's belongings after he died," Marie explained. "My family preserved it, not knowing the full story. Now it can be reunited with the daguerreotype, completing the picture of who he was and what he sacrificed." As Marcus stood before the exhibition, watching visitors study the daguerreotype with tears in their eyes, he thought about how this image had survived nearly 170 years. Through wars, floods, fires, and deliberate attempts to erase inconvenient histories, it had endured. In the daguerreotype, Isabel, Samuel, and baby Grace stare out from 1853, their expressions solemn, but their presence powerful. They had insisted on being seen, on being documented, on declaring their love in the face of a world that deemed it criminal. They had paid the ultimate price for that declaration, but their portrait remained, testament to a love that refused to be erased, evidence of resistance that couldn't be destroyed, and proof that even in the darkest chapters of history, people chose love over hate, courage over conformity, and truth over lies. The daguerreotype had finally fulfilled its purpose. After more than a century of silence, the Beaumont Freeman family had told their story, and in telling it, they had ensured that their brief, brave existence would never be forgotten.